What's up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. It is Wednesday, July 23rd. Your eyes do not deceive you. I am in my dorm room at St. John Fisher University. Ryan will be here tomorrow. We'll get cozied up. We'll do our Step Brothers thing. Bills 2025 training camp has begun, and it was a busy first day. Ryan, you were sitting back in Olean. What did you think of the text updates coming through for all of our insiders?
They were getting fired off early and often. I loved it, looking down in between little breaks there and seeing 4 or 5 notifications about what was going on in the 11-on-11s and all the other drills, videos, you name it. You were giving the insiders plenty on the first day of training camp.
We're brought to you by Amtrak. Amtrak's Empire Service offers frequent departures daily from Niagara Falls, Buffalo, all the way to New York City. Stops include Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Schenectady, Albany, Hudson, Poughkeepsie, and many more. There's comfort, no middle seats, plenty of legroom, reclining seats, ease of travel, free Wi-Fi on every single train, no baggage fees, generous baggage policies, and a cafe car. Head over to Amtrak.com today to start planning your next trip. All right, Ryan, we are going to start with Keon Coleman today because I think that coming into training camp, if you were to maybe make a small list of players that we were going to be watching pretty clearly, I think Keon Coleman would be near the top of the list. And what happened today was he got matched up with one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, and his name is Christian Benford. And time after time, rep after rep, it just had to be a super frustrating day for Keon Coleman because there were opportunities. There were moments where he won in routes. There were moments where he didn't win on routes. And I think when you're going up a guy at the likes of Christian Benford, who has the ability to really play in one-on-one coverage, he's healthy. He looks in great shape. He's fast. He's playing physical even before the pads get on. It provided for a very frustrating day for Keon Coleman. Couple of drops. I don't think I had a single catch noted for him in my notebook, and I sent almost every rep out to the insiders today. And it was just one of those things. Like I will say too, it's early. Balls are flying quick. Josh Allen mentioned it at the podium after practice. When they're running red zone drill, they want to make sure that they're being super careful with the football, not putting it in harm's way, not having a bunch of turnovers. And when that happens, you feel like Josh Allen's probably trying to get the ball out a little quicker, putting a little bit of extra zip on it. And there was a couple of plays where, man, it would have been just a sensational play if Keon Coleman was able to make a catch. He wasn't able to do that. And listen, you take this day, you go back, you lick your wounds, you watch the tape, and you come back out tomorrow and try to make some progress, but not an ideal start for the second year wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to hit the panic button yet, as you mentioned, just the first day, but it's a little frustrating to see that there was a lack of separation more times than not. And that's going to be bound to happen when you're going against Christian Benford, the top cornerback on this team. A cornerback that, in terms of the analytics, is at an all-pro type caliber the last few years. But you want to see him win one of those routes or make a play on a ball, make a difficult catch. And that just didn't happen today. So he's going to have to win in other ways in this league. It's going to have to come, obviously, in the red zone drills, on plays where Allen extends plays with his legs. We saw a little bit of that in his rookie year. I just don't know if there's any route running or routines that he can get into that's really going to make him a separator, where we kind of knew this is who he was. This is going to be a guy that's supposed to win 50-50 balls. He's not necessarily going to break away with his route running and or speed.
The other piece of this too is that, like, these are really important reps, as Josh mentions here on YouTube. Good work for the young guys to go against one of the league's best corners in Christian Benford. These are reps that, like, when you go back to the film room, it's not just about breaking this down with Adam Henry, the wide receivers coach. This is about getting in a room with Christian Benford, being out of the practice field with him. I'm going to be watching for the dynamic between Keon and Christian this week, because he's one of the guys, Christian, that Keon mentioned back when I spoke to him in the spring about being able to go inside the mind of a cornerback and what's the approach to try to shut Keon down. The other part of this too is, like, there was some physicality even without pads, but Keon's game is really predicated on his ability to really get physical with the other team's cornerback. And I think that we probably see a different version of him once the pads do go on later in the week. And I think a lot of times defenses start faster in training camp than
100%.
offenses. And they were flying around today, Ryan, like first level, second level. I mean, there were several plays, just to kind of go off topic here for a second. Greg Rousseau early got through his one-on-one and was in Josh Allen's face and forced him out of the pocket and chased him down. Dwayne Carter, who was running with the second team, the lineup of Joey Bosa, who's on the other side? I think Solomon might have been on the other side. I have it written down somewhere. And then Dwayne Carter, and who was the other defensive tackle? Do you remember that from my notes? I set it down on the insiders. I'll have to pull that up. Either way, Carter's running at the one technique to start here on the second team. He had a rep similar to Rousseau's where he won on the inside, got in Josh Allen's face, forced him out of the pocket, and chased him down forcing a throwaway. And we saw that consistently from the defensive line today, like winning one-on-one. We'll get into some of the performances of the second and third team. But Michael Hoyt was the other, was the edge rusher on the other side. And Ogunjobi as well. So the two guys that aren't going to be there to start the season through the first 6 weeks, they're taking a look at what that lineup looks like with Ogunjobi at the 3. I'm blanking here. Dwayne Carter at the 1, and then the 2 edge rushers there as well. But I think across the board, from your number 1 all the way down to 11 or 12 in both the defensive end and defensive tackle room, they were winning.
Yeah. And you said it a few minutes ago. Defense is usually ahead of the offense. You look at this defensive room for the Bills, and they did add a lot of new pieces on the D line, depth roles via draft, free agency. Obviously, Bosa being a big name off the edge, but 3 of your starters there from last year are back, as well as some of your depth. Your linebackers are practically the same for the most part. You have your safeties from a year ago. You have Christian Benford, and then even the 2 cornerbacks that you signed in free agency have been in this system. So there's a lot of comfort with this defense. Hairston being pretty much the lone of those starters or potential starters that hasn't had a lot of run yet. So it's expected, but it's encouraging to see the D-line winning so much on day one. And you flip it to the other side, no Spencer Brown being on the active PUP list. That obviously hurts the Bills. Dawson Knox being out, being one of Josh Allen's most trusted weapons, that hurts a little bit. And, in terms of their starting 2 tight ends, Knox is the better blocker of the 2 of them. So that hurts in that regard too. So you kind of have to factor all of that in.
You mentioned the injuries there. Maybe a good segue before we get to the next observation to go into who wasn't available today for the Bills. Dawson Knox, hamstring injury. Brandon Beane said that he tweaked it during some offseason work, knows his body, doesn't want to put too much on the ham. It sounded like to me that if he was a younger player, maybe it would be something that, I don't want to put words in Brandon's mouth, that he could maybe play through, but it's one of those things like, why rush it? It's a hamstring, soft tissue. Let it get 100%. It'll give valuable reps to Jackson Hawes and Dalton Kincaid in that number 1 spot with, also another guy that's on the, in a roster battle in Zach Davidson. They go out and they bring in Matt Sobel, pretty unimpressive first day for him. I mean, this is a journeyman type of player, camp body for the most part, with all due respect. So you got Dawson Knox out, Spencer Brown dealing with a back issue. And the way that Sean McDermott kind of phrased it today was it's a flare up. It's something that, for a guy that had back surgery in 2022, it's always something when you see back, you get a little worried about it, but he kind of downplayed it today, and we'll see how long until he's maybe working off to the side. We'll get to James is asking about Jackson Hawes. I'll get to him in a little while. Cedric Van Pran Granger, he's dealing with a calf injury. And then Laviska Shenault was on the bike today with a lower leg injury.
And of those injuries, the only one that you really want to hope to see out there right away in terms of for a roster spot is Shenault. I mean, he has a lot to play for in training camp and the preseason, and a return job, trying to make a case for the Bills to potentially carry 6 receivers. A lot riding on it for him, where the other players, what you have for the most part. Cedric Van Prank Granger could be the heir apparent at center, but you drafted him a year ago knowing that he played very well at Georgia as a pass protector, run blocker. Spencer Brown being a flare-up, honestly, once I heard that from Brandon Beane, I took that as an encouraging sign. It's better than pull or something like that. It's just kind of like a tweak to the back, most likely, and just a little bit of discomfort. So good news there as well. And then with Knox, you mentioned that too. He has so much experience in this offense. He already has the chemistry with Josh Allen, knows his body. Let him take his time coming back from this. Give valuable reps not only to Hawes, but also obviously to Dalton Kincaid.
Thank you so much for joining us here on this Wednesday, the first day of Bills training camp. A lot to get into from my observations from the first practice session today. There is an energy around this team for sure, Ryan. Just like from a 30,000-foot perspective, I think there's a lot of excitement about what this team has on offense. James Cook does show up. He participates in everything. And, based on Brandon Beane's comments, that the Bills never thought that he was going to show up and hold in or not participate. Brandon mentioned the fact of how competitive he is, how much he likes or wants to compete for a championship, how much he loves his teammates, all those kind of ingredients. Those are all the things that we said of why we didn't think it would be a hold in. And the other piece of it is he looks like he's in midseason form. He looked absolutely electric today. He was moving fast. He was getting in and out of his breaks. The cuts looked there. He scored a couple of touchdowns in the red zone work. James Cook is at a super high level. I thought Ty Johnson had a good practice today as well. So it's just going to be throughout the course of the summer, business as usual for that group, right? Like we'll watch Darrington Evans, who had a couple of nice plays today as well. Frank Gore Jr. But again, it's really about that three back trio of Davis, Johnson, and Cook.
100%. And Cook coming in looking more than prepared, midseason form, as you mentioned. That's great for him because either he could show the Bills this summer, hey, I bring this much juice to the offense. You're seeing it again. Maybe helps him go back to the negotiating table. Worst case scenario, he has another monster year, and there will be suitors for him in free agency if he does walk away from Buffalo without some kind of long-term deal. So no doubt in my mind that this is a motivating chip on the shoulder for James Cook, whether it's getting paid by Buffalo or elsewhere. Evans made enough plays last year that the Bills, kind of put him in a spot to return to the roster after getting injured late in the summer, and they like him. It's just there's no real room for him with the three backs that they have. And exactly what Ty Johnson brings to the table, and obviously a lot of upside for Ray Davis too going into year two.
If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Every time we go live after every single day of camp practice, you are going to get a ding on your phone so you can join us, comment, ask questions, anything that you want to do to participate in the live episode of Shout. We're going to have one every single day after training camp practices. If you can't wait for the episodes, and we have other stuff going on, cool little announcement, Ryan. Brandon Beane sat down today to join me for an episode of Shout. That'll be coming out either tomorrow or Friday, so stay tuned for that. It was a fun conversation. Got a little bit into the wide receiver conversation that happened with WGR a couple months ago. So I think fans will really enjoy the conversation. But if you can't wait for an episode, if I'm doing other things, if I'm writing, if I'm whatever the case may be, and it's like 2 hours after practice and we still haven't gone live, the insiders aren't even waiting for it because they already know everything that happened because I'm firing that thing out every single play of training camp. So right now, take a minute, go to joinsubtext.com/shoutbuffalobills or just text 716-528-6727. Get a 2-week free trial. There's no better time to do it than right now. You will get minute by minute updates from training camp practice from me, observations, some thoughts on how practices are going, everything that you need to be covered for Bills training camp, Brian.
That's right. And Matt's going to have you covered every day, but we're going to have twice as many texts getting fired off Friday and Sunday this weekend. I'll be there for both of those practices. I'll be there again next Thursday at the stadium Friday for the return of the red and blue. So, you name it, whether it's at St. John Fisher University or Highmark Stadium, we're going to have you covered all summer long, all the way through the preseason, roster cut down, you name it. Get on board now, 2-week free trial.
All right, next up, I want to get to Maxwell Hairston Jr. because I thought going into this first practice, I didn't really know where to set my expectations when it comes to where he'd play, right? Like we saw him for the majority of the spring really have to work his way up from the bottom, right? Like playing a lot of third team early in the spring, got a little second team reps. I think he got a couple reps here and there against some of the top guys. Well, he started on the second team today playing opposite Dane Jackson, and before long, he was getting worked in place of Trey White against some of the top wide receivers as well. And so I think that's an encouraging sign that we're starting from scratch here. You know, he's already getting some first team reps and he's in the thick of that competition. I thought, you know, Trey White made a play today. Maxwell Hairston made one of the best plays that anybody made on both sides of the ball. I think he actually got beat a little bit by KJ Hamler, who, by the way, arrow up. If we're doing an arrow up, KJ Hamler, put one of those on him. Talk more about him in a second. Beat Maxwell Hairston off the line. Just the quicks of Hamler, I would put his quickness and footwork at the line of scrimmage at the top of the list when it comes to Bills wide receivers or anybody on this roster. Like his feet are so quick. If you get out to a training camp practice and you watch routes versus air or some of the individual stuff that the receivers do, really hone in on KJ Hamler. He's got some really special speed. And you start to wonder, Ryan, like, do we get to a place where like we could see KJ Hamler on the field with Josh Allen? You know, like Elijah Moore's here, Curtis Samuel's here. I feel like they're both over him on the depth chart, but if either or both run into any kind of injury problems, that could present an opportunity for KJ Hamler. Just a former second-round pick. We were hyping this up. I was specifically last offseason as we moved to training camp when they signed him to a futures deal. Just a fun dart to throw. I thought he had a great day of practice today. He made one of the catches of the day in the back of the end zone. It was a really nice grab. I think on a ball from Mike White. But the playing question, back to Hairston, beats him off the line. Hairston's in trouble at this point because whoever was the quarterback, I think it was Josh Allen, it was a quick throw. Like he had to immediately recover, and he did. Like you saw his ability to drive to the ball, his ability to get the quickness and recognition immediately, and then go in there. Maxwell Hairston makes the pass breakup. It was a really, really nice play and a feather in his cap. A nice play for the rookie on day one.
Yeah, it was cool pre-practice seeing video of Christian Benford embracing Hairston, talking to him, probably, you know, giving him a little bit of advice here on day one of training camp, and getting mixed in already is huge for him, as you mentioned, with this first team, because those are the opportunities against the best of the best. You're going against Josh Allen throwing the ball. So if you can make plays on the ball with Allen throwing it, there's going to be a few quarterbacks in the league that throw it with the velocity that he does. So very encouraging. The Bills shared video of that play. It kind of looked like almost like a cartoon where you see Hamler going for the catch, and the last second he comes in, at being Max Hairston, and making a play on the ball, gets the hands out, looks like he's going to intercept it, doesn't quite make the play on the ball or finish the play, but a pass breakup can be just as good as an interception. So encouraging first start for him. And one thing on Hamler is, go ahead.
Did you say that it was Trubisky that threw it, not Allen?
No, because I was talking about, yeah.
It was, because I went and just pulled up the replay.
Video.
And as soon as the ball came out of the quarterback's hands, before I even saw the number,
that's not Allen. No, I just seen the play on the ball there. You're right. That much different velocity. But, you know, one thing on Hamler is it was frustrating last season. The Bills had some injuries in the wide receiver room, and you kept thinking Hamler was going to get his name called for one of those elevations, and it just never happened. And obviously stayed on the practice squad all of last year. They liked him enough to keep him there. So I just wonder, though, like what he would have to do this summer to even give himself a realistic shot of making the roster. And it might be something where, you know, the odds are stacked against some of these guys below Elijah Moore, and it might just be that they're destined for the practice squad here, minus or barring an injury. But we have seen over summers before players get moved up the depth chart or the rankings very quickly in the summer, and it gives them those opportunities. Not a great example because he didn't make the roster, but Andy Isabella a few years ago, getting work with the first team after coming in the middle of training camp, kind of working up the charts. So it can happen. It's just he's going to need an incredible summer for it to happen.
We got over almost 1,100 people watching across all platforms. I mentioned Jackson Hawes. Our guy Pops Mafia mentioned he had one catch in team drills today. But again, I think that it's really important to use perspective on these days. I mean, the pads aren't on, of course,
Right.
but also like every little play that you can kind of put into the film room and break down, and the successful moments that he's had, whether it be in the blocking game, whether it be in the passing game, those are big time moments. And to be out there with Josh Allen the first day of practice for a few snaps, however many he got for today, that's it. That's a huge development for Hawes, a 5th round draft pick who I know when the Bills drafted him, we talked about it. Most people figured that he was just going to be here to block. And I said it in the spring, I thought that there was more to him than that. I thought he showed off his hands a little bit. He'll have an opportunity probably over the next week to really make some ground up and really state his early case to why he should make a run at a roster spot.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome to see that in terms of making plays in the spring, getting opportunities now in the summer, knowing what he brings to the table as a blocker, but having some opportunities to maybe catch some passes from Josh Allen. I think, in terms of his roster spot, he's more than safe at this point. I love Zach Davidson in his game, but they drafted him for a reason. He's going to play a lot of special teams, most likely to replace Quentin Morris in that regard, and have an opportunity to really carve out a nice role in this offense.
Man, it was nice out today. I heard it's going to be like 94 tomorrow. So
Yeah.
You're going to get the heat on Friday. So congratulations on that. Scott Moranto asking, how was Coach Nielsen on day one? I actually missed during individual work. I was still on the offensive side, and I admittedly was talking to one of the Bill scouts for a little while. So I didn't get all the way over to the individual line work. So if you haven't signed up to become an insider, it's a great transition. Stay tuned for tomorrow, because spoiler alert, there is going to be some Ryan Nielsen / defensive line pad videos tomorrow going out in the insider text line. So more to come on that. One guy I want to transition to here, and we didn't see him much last season, Travis Clayton. He's got that international pathway program boxed there that he gets to be the 91st person on the roster. We saw a lot of them team drills today, and it's interesting when you don't see somebody for the majority of a season. He's dealing with an injury and whatever. You kind of wondering where things are going to start off for him. And I was watching him during individual, and Aaron Cromer there, and you think about it, no Spencer Brown, which means you get an elevation, right? Tylen Grable ends up playing at right tackle, first team for most of the practice. Ryan Vandermark got some work there as well. But when Travis Clayton, his number got called on the second team, Ryan, it didn't go well. It didn't go well. And this is combined with what part of our headline here on this episode, a mystery defensive end has a impressive first day. Well, it came at courtesy of Travis Clayton, unfortunately, because Paris Shand was absolutely destroying him in the one-on-ones. I mean, just the speed move on the outside. When Javon Solomon was there, it was the same exact thing. I thought Solomon had a really impressive day. But for Shand, this is a UDFA guy that comes in here in a very, very packed room in the defensive end room. And he goes out there on day one and says, oh, wait a second, let me raise my hand here. You might want to take a look at me a little bit. I know that there's mountains to climb to try to have any conversation, to try to enter into the conversation at all. But it was a really good first day for Shand.
Yeah, really impressive. I'll get to Shand in a second. Travis Clayton, nowhere to go but up, I suppose. But last year, drafted international pathway player, shoulder injury kind of shuts him down for the season. And I don't know how much work he ended up getting last year, in terms of transitioning to football after healing from the shoulder injury. Depending on the severity of it, it may not have been much. So this really could be kind of his welcome to American football after playing a lot of rugby. And it was a very rough start. He has the frame and the size that you love to see. A lot that maybe you can develop there, but it's going to be a long road. This isn't going to be, most likely, I guess I should protect myself in case there's a major turnaround. This isn't going to be a Tylen Grable who kind of I don't want to say came out of nowhere last year, but I wasn't expecting him to win the swing tackle job as a rookie like he did. So, stranger things have happened. Maybe he does improve throughout camp, but definitely a rough start. Paris Shand, a fun player, UDFA, played at Arizona, I believe, for 2 years, then was at LSU, played different spots on the formation at LSU, and never had gaudy stats, but he was a contributor, someone that they counted on during his tenure there, from Toronto, so has some roots near Buffalo. It would be a very fun story if he can continue with the strong start to his summer once the pads come on. Making a case for a roster spot will be tough, but he could be one of those priority players that we need to get this guy on the practice squad.
The thing, too, that blows you away about Shand is that, like, usually undrafted free agents that are coming in, like, on the defensive line, I go entire training camp without even really noticing them. Right. Like we'll see questions that pop up in the chat, like, oh, how's this guy doing? Like, how's this? Like Kingsley Jonathan is an example of a guy that really popped. Right. Shand's day today was different. Like this was something that you don't see very often. He was really explosive. Now against Clayton, it's hard to you got to use some perspective there. The pads aren't all on yet. All those kind of things are important. But it's a really good day for him. And again, this goes to the depth that Brandon Beane has created in that defensive end room. Michael Hoyt, when we're talking about Michael Hoyt and Joey Bosa being on the second team and having to wait, I didn't really see Landon Jackson a ton today. We'll see if I can't pick him out in team drills tomorrow a little bit more. But across the board, I thought the defensive line was just in the face of the offense. The pressure was turned up to a pretty high degree, and it was a really good day for the unit overall.
Yeah, one more thing on Shand. It wasn't all against Travis Clayton. You mentioned he did have one really good rep against Vandemark as well. So, a good day at the office for him. And some of the other rookies, too, and young players on this D-line that we can touch upon in a little bit if you want. But an encouraging start for some of the young players on this D-line.
We got almost 1,300 people watching across all the platforms right now on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. The Bills wrapped up day one of training camp, and we got our observations that we're diving into right now. Let's get to Dalton Kincaid, because one of the things with Dawson Knox out now provides a, spotlight onto Dalton Kincaid, because when he's out there, he's going to be getting the majority of the work with Josh Allen and opportunities to make plays. And, it started very early in practice today. He took a short pass from Allen and kick-started it upfield and went in for a touchdown. I think he had 3 touchdowns on the day during red zone work. It's just like right place, right time, right? Like there was actually, we mentioned the good for Maxwell Hairston. There was one play where Kincaid just kind of found the open spot in the end zone, was able to kind of drive towards the ball, and Hairston wasn't able to react fast enough in that situation. Kincaid ends up with a touchdown. But I thought Kincaid looked explosive today. He looks relaxed. That's the other piece of it. Yeah. Like for a guy that has heard the scrutiny all offseason long, he's coming into training camp with a freshness to him, and I think a relief that he could play a little bit free and not have to worry about the injury that he dealt with for most of last season. And it shows. It showed on day one.
He had a great day, multiple touchdowns, as you mentioned. He had a great summer last year as well. And then kind of the knee injury hampered him throughout the season. Great start for him, though, after the way last season ended. He talked about how that's going to be a motivating factor for him this season. He wants to kind of, I'm sure he wants to go back to the way he played as a rookie in terms of the stats, the production, take it to that next level. There's a lot of expectations on Dalton Kincaid 1 year ago, and because of that injury, he didn't come close to probably meeting said expectations. So now it's funny. I did a SiriusXM fantasy spot last weekend. He's kind of been pushed down the rankings quite a bit at tight end versus 1 year ago, and almost being forgotten about. I think he's going to have a big role in this offense, and we've seen it. We see the chemistry getting open, the ability to break away from linebackers, beat members of the secondary as well, use his size in those cases against secondary members where he's bigger than them. So encouraging first day, arrow up for Dalton Kincaid.
All right. I think that, what do you think? You think that'll do it? Anything else that we're leaving out here? Oh, I wanted to get to a couple of rookies.
Yes.
With how deep things are on this defensive line, the opportunities sometimes on some of these days might be few and far between. You're going to have to make an impact where you can. And I thought today, with the way that the Bills defense played, and then to put an exclamation point on it at the end of practice with a combined sack between TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, it was a really, really impressive play. And I caught up with both guys after practice, and Sanders was telling me how funny it was to be in that moment with Walker because they were at the Senior Bowl together, and they both talked about it while they were there. Like, could you imagine if we ended up on the same team and we're able to rush the quarterback together? And now all these months later in NFL training camp, they're actually doing that. Deion Walker joked that TJ Sanders kind of gave him a hard time when they first met because he had a better season than him in 2023. So he felt like he was kind of chasing after him a little bit before obviously Walker dealt with the injury plague season last season. So these are two guys that have already built a bond and really the future of this defensive line in many ways, right? Like, over the next 4 years, you're hoping that these two guys have prominent roles in what the Bills want to do on money downs against Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. It was a second or third team combo sack at the end of a long first day of training camp practice. So we're not writing headlines off this or anything, but just a play that was made. You see the juice, you see the energy. Another piece of this, Deion Walker told me after practice, the last 6 weeks have been a grind. He has been doing all the core glute exercises that Will Greenberg can find for him to do to get his body to a place where he feels confident to put the pads on. He said he hasn't felt this good in a long time. He's ready to go when the pads go on this week. That's a huge development for Deion Walker. If he could be somebody the Bills can count on, that's something that, 2 months ago we were talking about, like, is this going to be maybe a redshirt season for him because of the uncertainty around that back injury? He's in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, you can tell we've worked together a long time because I was just thinking the same thing before you mentioned it. No headlines being written on Deion Walker, but from where we thought he might be to being no limitations, full steam ahead, being a full participant, making a play on day one, that's so encouraging. And I know there's still a lot to work on with his game, pad level, etc. But that's a big defensive tackle that the Bills have not had the type of player like that. So if you can coach him up, bring him along, he can be a force on the interior of this D-line. And as for TJ Sanders, I want to temper expectations, but he had an impressive spring, and he started out training camp on an impressive note as well. So again, you don't want to put too much on the expectations for a rookie in year one, but he is checking every box so far, proving why the Bills moved up for him in round 2, why they talked about he would have been in play at pick 30 if Hairston had been taken. He's definitely standing out in the crowd already early on at training camp.
Quick special teams update before we get out of here. All instant reviews on Brad Robbins are 2 thumbs up. He punted really well today. The hang time was there. If you want actual clocked hang times, head over to The Athletic. Joe Biscaglia is going to have a detailed report, I would imagine, any minute dropping on the punt times. But he looked really good at, in the punting part of practice. And then Tyler Bass went 5 for 5 in field goals, ranging from, I think, a 25 or 26 yarder all the way back to a 48 yarder. Robbins was holding. So I think, long story short, Brandon Beane said the Dawson Knox injury forced his hand to make the move to bring in the tight end, which ended up cutting Camarda. But if, anything goes wrong with Robbins over the next couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back into the mix. It seems like they're really happy with him, and he looked really good kicking the ball today.
Yeah, encouraging sign on special teams. A perfect day for Tyler Bass. Great hang time on kicks from Robbins. So good start there as well.
All right, so a couple quick housekeeping notes before we get out of here. We are coming back to Dorado in Rochester August 7th, so get that on your calendar. We're also hoping to get out tomorrow to Sal and Matt's event at Bar Bill. We're going to go, we'll be in town. So if you're around and you want to come out and say hi at either of those 2 events, I highly recommend it. It is going to be a fun time. Wingnuts is coming to Dorado on August 7th. They do a pop-up. They're bringing thousands of wings. They're going to cook all day long. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So get out there. We also have the merch store now. Check it out. The link's in the description. You can get Shout swag, hats, shirts, quarter zips, mugs, koozies, anything that you want. It's really awesome. They did a really good job with that, Ryan.
Yeah, great designs, a little bit of everything, mugs, coffee, coffee mugs, regular mugs, you name it, clear book bags, clear bags for training camp or Bills games, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, as much swag as you can imagine. Check it out.
We're brought to you by Amtrak, of course. We'll have the Amtrak Hype Train Player of the Week on either tomorrow's episode or the following one. Make sure you head over to the website right now and start planning your next trip. We're also brought to you by the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. The National Comedy Center, perfect day trip or weekend trip for the entire family. One of the most interactive museums in the country. This is a museum experience like no other, featuring comedy's biggest hits and greatest legends. It's a day filled with laughter. All right, for Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. Back again tomorrow. Sign up to become an insider. We'll have more from practice here at 2025.